Only 5 came down tonight. You always set too many. Force of habit, Vivian.
You cooked the roast too long again.
I'll do better tomorrow. New coat? Aren't we doing nicely on someone else's dime?
I paid for it myself. Thank you, Vivian.
It's good you've got your little bread hobby.
We've carried you a long time. Don't forget it. I never forget it.
I'll do better. I always do. You have no idea what I've built in the dark.
They never let her forget she was the charity case they took in. They loved reminding her whose roof she lived under. At dinner, at breakfast, every time a bill came due. Naomi learned to say thank you, the way other people learn to breathe, without thinking, all day long. She wore the same apron every night and set the table for 12, even when only 5 came down to eat. She turned her father's old watch over in her palm once, twice, when the words got sharp and she said nothing. Today that roof is legally hers, and she gets to decide who stays. The radiator in the back bedroom knocked 3 times before it warmed. Naomi knew the sound the way she knew her own pulse. 3 knocks, a pause, then the slow tick of the pipes finding their heat. She had counted it for 9 years. She had come to the Ashford house at 24, a widow before she was ready to be a wife. Daniel had died 14 months into the marriage, and his parents had opened their door with a phrase that never quite closed again. "We couldn't just leave you out there," Vivian had said. "Not in your condition." There had been no condition, only grief and a suitcase, and $11 folded flat in the inside pocket of a coat that had been Daniel's. 9 years later, Naomi still lived in the back bedroom. She still set the table. She still said thank you. Vivian ran the household the way a captain runs a ship she suspects is sinking. She kept the good silver in a felt-lined drawer and counted it after holidays. She wore her wedding ring even now, and when she was displeased, she tapped it against the rim of her water glass, a small, bright sound that made everyone at the table go quiet. Gerald cleared his throat before he spoke, always, as if warming an engine. He had been a man of some importance once, in insurance, and he still wore his importance like a coat that no longer fit. And there was Todd, Daniel's younger brother, 36 and unmarried, who treated Naomi like furniture he'd been asked to store. "You cooked the roast too long again," he said that first evening of the story, not looking up from his phone. "I'll do better tomorrow," Naomi said. She always said that, "I'll do better," as if the debt could be paid down in roasts and folded laundry and quiet. That night she opened the refrigerator and stood in its light longer than she needed to. Not because she was hungry, because for a moment, in the cold hum of it, no one was watching her, no one was reminding her. She took out nothing. She closed the door slowly. On the wall by the back stairs hung a photograph of the house from 1961, the year Gerald's father built it. In the picture, the front door wore a brass knocker shaped like a small bird. A wren, wings tucked, head turned as if listening. The knocker was gone now, lost in some renovation, but the picture stayed. Naomi looked at that little brass wren more often than anyone knew. There was something in the way it held its head, listening, waiting. Not gone exactly, just quiet. She turned her father's watch over in her palm. Then she climbed the back stairs to the room that was never hers, and the radiator knocked 3 times and warmed. The reminders came in 100 small denominations. When Naomi bought herself a coat one winter, plain wool, on sale, the first thing she'd purchased for herself in 2 years, Vivian looked at it over the top of her reading glasses and said, "Well, aren't we doing nicely on someone else's dime?" Naomi had paid for it with money she earned. She said thank you anyway, because thank you was the toll, and she'd stopped counting how many times a day she paid it. She worked. That was the thing none of them quite registered. 6 mornings a week she took the bus downtown to a shared kitchen off Weekday Street, where she baked before dawn and sold at a stall by 9. Sourdough, seeded rolls, a lemon thyme loaf that regulars started lining up for. She kept the receipts folded into neat squares in a tin under her bed, the way her mother had. The Ashfords thought it was a hobby. something to keep her out of the house. "It's good you have your little bread thing," Gerald said once, clearing his throat. "Keeps the mind occupied. After everything. After everything." That was how they said Daniel's name without saying it. Naomi nodded and refilled his coffee. She had learned that the surest way to be underestimated was to let people finish their own sentence about you. So she let them. She let Vivian believe she was fragile. She let Todd believe she was slow. She let Gerald believe she was grateful in the bottomless, boneless way they needed her to be. And every morning at 4:15, she rose in the dark, and the radiator knocked 3 times, and she went to make something that was entirely her own. At the stall, she was not the charity case. She was the woman whose lemon thyme loaf sold out by 10. Customers learned her name. A retired baker named Sophia taught her about margins, about wholesale, about the difference between working hard and building something. "Hard work fills the day," Sophia told her, flouring a board with her thick, sure hands. "Ownership fills the years. You want the years, Naomi. Get your name on something." Naomi turned the phrase over the way she turned her father's watch. "Get your name on something." That night, at dinner, Vivian tapped her ring against her glass. The table went quiet. "We've carried you a long time, dear," she said, apropos of nothing. "I hope you know that. I hope you never forget it." "I never forget it," Naomi said. It was the truest thing she said all week. She never forgot any of it. She was keeping a ledger they couldn't see, not out of spite, out of survival. She wiped a single tear at the sink, quickly, with the back of her wrist, so no one would see it and call it ingratitude. The trouble came for the Ashfords, the way it comes for a lot of proud houses, quietly, then all at once. Gerald's investments, it turned out, had not weathered the years as well as his opinion of them. There had been a business partner, a handshake deal, a signature on a line he hadn't read closely enough. Naomi caught the shape of it from the hallway one evening, Gerald's voice low and tight behind the study door, saying a number, and then saying it again as if the second time might make it smaller. The good silver went first. Naomi noticed the felt-lined drawer had gone light, then the second car, then Vivian stopped hosting her Thursday bridge group, citing a headache that lasted 4 months. "It's temporary," Gerald told the family at dinner, clearing his throat twice. "A cash flow matter, nothing structural." But the house told a different story. A gutter came loose over the porch and nobody called about it. The radiator in the back bedroom now knocked 5 times before it warmed, then 6, and 1 week in February it didn't warm at all, and Naomi slept in her wool coat and said nothing. She heard the word mortgage through the study door. She heard second in front of it, she heard behind. The family that had reminded her every day whose roof she lived under was, she slowly understood, about to lose it. And here was the strange thing. She felt no triumph. Standing in the cold hallway with her father's watch warming in her palm, she felt something closer to grief. For Daniel, for the house he'd grown up in, for the little brass wren in the photograph that had listened to all of this for 60 years. But grief and clarity can share a room. The next morning at the stall, Sophia handed her a folder. Inside were the papers to form a limited liability company. The paperwork Naomi had been quietly assembling for months, the wholesale contracts, the small business loan she'd qualified for on the strength of her own numbers, not anyone's charity. "You've got a name to put on this," Sophia said. "What'll it be?" Naomi thought of the photograph, the bird with its head turned, listening, the street where she'd learned she was worth something. "Wren and Weekday," she said. Sophia smiled. "Sign here." Naomi signed with her maiden name. Naomi Wren, the name she'd carried before the Ashfords, before the roof, before the debt she never asked to owe. And for the first time in 9 years, when she said the words to herself, they didn't taste like a toll. Thank you, she thought, but she was thanking herself. Wren and Weekday grew the way bread does, slowly, invisibly, and then all at once too big for the pan. The lemon thyme loaf went into 3 cafes, then 7. A hotel put in a standing order. A food writer with a large following posted a photograph of Naomi's seeded rye and used the word transcendent, and for 2 weeks she couldn't bake fast enough. She hired her first employee, then her second. She moved out of the shared kitchen and leased a small space of her own on Weekday Street, and on the day she got the keys, she stood in the empty room and cried the way you cry when something is finally, entirely yours. None of the Ashfords knew. At the house, she was still the charity case, still setting the table for 12, still saying thank you. She'd learned that a woman building something in the dark should not turn on the lights until the walls can stand. But the strain at home was showing now, in ways too large to hide. One evening she came home to find Vivian sitting alone at the long table, the good silver drawer open and empty beside her, one place setting cleared from the arrangement she'd kept for years. Daniel's place, the seat at the corner, closest to the window. Vivian had set it every night for 9 years, and no one had ever said a word about it. Now it was gone, cleared, as if she'd finally run out of the strength to pretend her son might walk in. Vivian's hands were folded on the table, her wedding ring was still. For once, it wasn't tapping anything. "We're going to lose it," she said, not looking up. She said it to Naomi because Naomi was the only one there, and maybe because Naomi was the only one who wouldn't make it worse. The house. Gerald's people found a buyer who'll close fast. Cash. We haven't got a choice. Naomi stood in the doorway. She could have said many things. She had rehearsed some of them, in the dark, in the cold, in 9 years of swallowed replies. She said, "I'm sorry, Vivian." And she was. That was the part that surprised her most. She looked at this proud, frightened woman sitting beside an empty drawer and a cleared place setting, and she understood something she hadn't let herself understand before. Vivian had been drowning for a long time, and the only way she'd known how to stay afloat was to keep her hand on someone else's head. It didn't excuse it, but it explained it, and Naomi found she could hold both. Late that night, alone in the office on Weekday Street, Naomi pulled the anonymous listing Gerald's people had circulated. Cash buyer wanted, quick close, no contingencies. She read it twice. Then she reached for the phone, and her hand rested on it a long moment in the dark, the way you rest a hand on a door before you decide to open it. She turned her father's watch over in her palm. Once, twice, and then she made the call. She did not give her name. The offer went in through a lawyer, on paper, with a cashier's check attached, that Gerald's people described only as strong. Naomi sat across the table from her own attorney, in a small office on Weekday Street, and she read every line before she signed. She had learned that from watching Gerald fail to. The purchase price, the closing date, the clause that let the sellers stay 90 days after transfer, because even now, even after everything, she could not make herself put them on the street in February. "You're being generous with the leaseback," her lawyer noted, "more than you have to be." "I know," Naomi said. She wasn't doing it for them exactly. She was doing it for the woman she wanted to be on the other side of this. The debt they'd made her carry for 9 years had a weight, and she'd decided she would not pick it up and carry it in the other direction. She would set it down. At the house, the mood lifted the way a fever breaks. The cash buyer was real. The check had cleared into escrow. Gerald walked taller. He cleared his throat at dinner and announced that the family had weathered a difficult season through prudence and faith, and Todd nodded as if he'd had anything to do with it, and Vivian tapped her ring against her glass, but softer now, almost gently, a woman remembering how the sound used to work. "We've had our troubles," Gerald said, warming to it, "but this family looks after its own. We always have. We took people in when we didn't have to." His eyes drifted for just a moment to Naomi. "We know something about generosity in this house." Naomi refilled his coffee. "Who's the buyer?" Todd asked, chewing. "Anybody know? Gerald, you meet them?" "An investment concern," Gerald said, waving his fork. "Some limited company, Ren something. Doesn't matter. Their money's the same color as anyone's." Naomi kept her face still. She kept pouring. The coffee steamed up between them, and through it, she watched them celebrate the stranger who had saved them, and she did not say a word. That was the last week they spoke to her like a charity case. She let the silence hold, the way you hold a match before the wick catches, knowing exactly how much light is coming, and choosing, for one more breath, the dark. The closing was set for Friday. Friday came grey and cold. The family gathered in the front room because Gerald had insisted on handling the paperwork properly, which meant sitting in his good chair while a courier delivered the final documents. He assumed the buyer's representative would come, sign, and leave. He'd worn a tie for it. The courier came. So did Naomi's attorney. And so, walking in from the kitchen where she'd been all morning, apron still on, flour still ghosting the creases of her knuckles, did Naomi. She set a folder on the table. It was warm. She had printed the last page of it not 20 minutes earlier, in the small office she owned on Weekday Street, and the paper still held the heat of the machine. "What's this?" Gerald said, clearing his throat. Naomi opened the folder. She turned it around so it faced them, the way you turn a check face up when it's finally time. It was the deed. the transferred, recorded, executed deed to the Ashford house. And on the line where the owner's name is printed, in plain black letters that did not shout, it read, Wren and Weekday, LLC, sole member, Naomi Wren. For a long moment no one moved. Vivian's ring hand went still on the arm of her chair. Todd's mouth was open around a word he couldn't find. Gerald picked up the page and set it down and picked it up again, as if the second reading might make it smaller. This is a mistake, he said. It isn't, Naomi said. I read every line, twice. You, Todd said. You bought, with what money, you bake bread. I own a company, Naomi said. Her voice was quiet. It did not need to be more than quiet. I've owned it for a while. I built it in the mornings you thought I was out of your way. She looked at Vivian then, and something in her softened, and something in her did not. The buyer you've been thanking God for all week. The one who's letting you stay 90 days when they didn't have to. That was me. The radiator, somewhere in the back of the house, knocked 3 times. Gerald was on his feet now. After everything this family did for you, you reminded me every day whose roof this was, Naomi said. She did not raise her voice. She turned her father's watch over in her palm, once, and let it rest. Let me remind you just once, it's mine now. The room went so still she could hear the pipes ticking as they warmed. Vivian did not shout. Vivian, of all of them, understood first. She looked at the deed and then at the photograph on the wall by the stairs, the house in 1961, the little brass wren with its head turned, listening, and then at the woman standing in the doorway in a flour-dusted apron, and her eyes filled, and she pressed her lips together, and she nodded once. Just once. She had cleared a place setting the week before, because she'd finally run out of pretending. Now she looked at Naomi, and there was no pretending left in her at all. You could put us out, Vivian said quietly. You'd have every right. I know, Naomi said, and she let that sit, the way she'd learned to let everything sit, in 9 years of swallowed replies, knowing that the power was hers now, entirely, and that what she did with it in the next breath would tell them exactly who she'd become in the dark. If you've ever been made to feel small in a house that wasn't yours, if you've ever carried a debt you never agreed to owe, then you already know the weight Naomi set down on that table. Stay with her. What she does next isn't what they expect, and it isn't what you might expect either. If this story is reaching something in you, take a second to subscribe. These are stories about quiet people who were underestimated for the last time, and there's a new one every week. Now, let's see what a woman does with a roof that finally has her name on it. Naomi did not put them out. She could have. Every right, as Vivian said, sat squarely in her hands. But she had decided, somewhere in the cold months and the 4:15 mornings, that she would not become the thing that had made her small. Power, she'd learned, is loudest when it doesn't have to be. She let them keep the lease back, 90 days, at a rent so gentle it was almost a gift, but it was rent, paid to her, on the first of the month, and the paying of it rearranged something in the house that no speech ever could. Gerald cleared his throat less. Todd learned her name. Vivian, in the last weeks, took to sitting with Naomi in the kitchen while the bread proofed, saying little, the two of them keeping a companionable quiet that neither had known they were capable of. Why? Vivian asked her once, watching Naomi's flower-white hands work the dough. Why be kind to us after? Naomi thought about it honestly, because Vivian deserved an honest answer. Because the people who never let you forget a favor, she said, spend their whole lives believing that's what strength looks like, making sure you remember what you owe them. She folded the dough over on itself. I didn't want to spend mine believing that too. Vivian's ring hand was still on the table. She didn't tap it. She reached out, once, and covered Naomi's floured hand with her own, and neither of them said anything, and the radiator knocked 3 times and warmed. When the 90 days ended, the Ashfords moved to a smaller place across town, and Gerald found honest work he didn't feel above, and Vivian sent Naomi a card every so often, signed simply, with respect, not gratitude. Gratitude had been the currency of the old house, and they were both done spending it. Respect was better. Respect was earned. Naomi stayed in the house on the hill. She had the gutter fixed and the radiator replaced, though she kept the old one's memory in the 3 knocks she still heard in her sleep. She turned the back bedroom, the room that was never hers, into an office for Wren and Weekday, and on good mornings she baked in the big kitchen just for the pleasure of it, alone, in the light. And one afternoon she went down to a little shop that restored old hardware, and she had them make a brass knocker for the front door. A small bird, wings tucked, head turned as if listening. A wren. She mounted it herself, with her own hands, on the door of the house that finally, entirely, bore her name. She used to say thank you, the way other people breathe, all day long. A toll she paid to stay. She still says it now. But she says it differently. She says it to Sophia, who taught her that ownership fills the years. She says it to the woman she was at 4:15 in the dark, building something no one saw. She says it to her father's watch, warm in her palm, and to the little brass wren that listens at her door. She was their charity case. They loved reminding her whose roof she lived under. Now the roof over their heads had her name on the deed, and she'd learned the thing they never did, that the people who make you feel indebted may one day owe you the roof itself. Gratitude and power can trade places, and when they do, you get to choose whether to hold someone's head under or offer them a hand up. Naomi chose the hand. That was the whole of her revenge, and it was more than enough. Naomi never gloated. She never gave a speech. She simply built something in the dark, put her own name on it, and let the truth arrive on warm paper, one quiet page at a time. If her story moved you, tell me in the comments. Have you ever been the one they underestimated? I read every reply, and your stories are the reason I keep telling these. Subscribe and stay with us. Next week, there's another quiet soul the world wrote off too soon, and another moment when the room finally goes still. Until then, your worth was never up for someone else to decide. It never was.